This is your teacher, Mrs. Angulo. I hope you're all doing wonderful during this time and that you're staying healthy and you're going outside and you're being kind of productive as a student, because you should be. And I am as well as your teacher. So I've been thinking about you guys because I miss you, and I wanted to make a video about art, an art project that you can do in your house. So I posted a poem called Waiting at the Window, and if you've read it, or if you've listened to it, or if you haven't read it or listened to it yet, you should. And then you should watch this video because this art project goes along with the poem. And I was inspired by this poem because the author has created this story about raindrops because they observed how raindrops fall on a window pane. And so using this poem, I was like, we should do art that has to do with water. And so then we can explore how water touches a surface of paper and see how the textures can change and move. And using color, we can actually see how the raindrop falls onto the piece of paper, and then it'll dry, and then we'll see the whole story of the raindrop falling on its piece of paper. This is your first task. You are going to gather a bunch of things that I'm going to tell you from your house. The first thing you will need is a white piece of paper. It can be any size, it can be small. I would prefer larger just because it gives you more space to work with. So just a piece of paper, doesn't have to be anything special. Second thing you'll need is watercolors. Watercolors are water-based. So usually they come in a palette where you will just use water to wet each surface here to use the paint. So you'll just go in with your paintbrush and dip it into your water jar, and then you'll dip it into your paint palette. And then you'll start to see the color come up and it'll start to get more watery. And that's the type of texture you want to use on your paper. So watercolor is one thing. If you don't have a palette at home, even though you might be able to find these at the dollar store, I've definitely found some at the dollar store. They're pretty cheap and they're very reusable, so you can use them anytime you need to. And it does not stain your clothes, which your parents would be happy about. Now, if you don't have watercolor, the third thing that you can try and find in your house is a bunch of food coloring. So sometimes you'll use food coloring for dyeing frosting or cookies or whatever you have. And they just come in these little bottles, and you can use these and mix this with water in your water cup, and it'll change your water a different color. Fourth thing you'll need is a jar or a cup or a water, anything that you can put water in. And you'll want to use, maybe fill it up to about halfway. And this is going to be where you're going to clean your brush off and just add more water to your paint palette whenever you need it. Fifth thing you'll need is a paintbrush. Now, if you have a paintbrush at home, it can be any type of paintbrush. It does not need to be a fancy artistic tool that professional artists use. It can be any type of paintbrush. Sixth thing you'll need is a paper towel. And a paper towel is just to help you clean up all of your messes and also dry off your brush, because sometimes when you dip your brush into the paint, you have too much paint on there or you have too much water. And so just having a little towel on the side to swipe off some paint is really helpful before you go in on your paper with your paintbrush. And last but not least, once your painting is dry and is ready to go, you can go back in with some crayons, or you can go back in with some markers, whatever other color materials you have at home, you may use those to add more to your picture. Now, to extend this project, you can also create your own story about your raindrops, and you can add characters to your picture. You could also add a background to your raindrop picture. That way it's telling the setting of your story and also the characters. And you can also add speech bubbles, whatever else really paints the picture of your story when you think about these raindrops that you're going to be painting. Here are all the materials you'll be needing. Red, yellow, and blue are my primary colors, which means that these colors cannot be made by another color. They are their own colors, and you can make the primary colors into a secondary color. If I mix red and blue together, I can make purple. Now if I mix red and yellow together, I can make orange. The first thing I want to start with is a raindrop. So I'm going to go ahead and take my blue, because I want a blue raindrop. Make sure that there's enough water in your palette. Now the cool thing about watercolor is that if you put enough water here, you can lift your paper up and it'll just start to drip. When the moon hangs low in Napoli. So here I'm going back in with my paint and it's slowly dripping. If I drip it right here, it starts to fall, following the trail of water that I've already created. Alright, so I'm just going to continue doing this on my paper, and it can turn into a story, or it can just turn into an art piece that has a lot of beautiful colors on it that really show the texture of how water drops on a page or on a surface. Now I'm going to try it with my food coloring here. I'm going to see how much of a difference that one makes. And there it makes this beautiful texture down at the bottom. My water can just continue to dribble down onto my piece of paper here, so it doesn't get onto my surfaces I don't want paint on. Food coloring really creates this beautiful drip of water here, really reenacting the way raindrops fall on a window pane. Sometimes when this paint just drips off of your paper, I think it creates a more natural beauty of its own. Now you can go ahead and continue working on your painting. I am going to stop here and show you the end result of what I've come up with on my own, and give you the opportunity to also explore watercolor or food coloring on your piece of paper, and I would love to see what you have come up with once you're done. Now here I have more of my painting. I've added a lot more depth to my painting, so here I have a lot larger globs of paint, and then I have smaller large globs of paint, and I've actually taped it onto my door because I feel like it helps with the angling of my paint to fall straight down off of my paper. So here I'm going to show you a little bit of how these paints are combining. So here I've dipped my paint and I'm making a big glob, and I'm kind of just letting my arm trail down my paper all the way down, just making my own watermark. And now that this section is wet here, I can go back in with my water and take it back to my blob to make it wetter, and it'll drip this beautiful water strip straight through my made water strip. Now if I want to make it with different colors and mix it with different colors, I can go ahead and go in with a different color and create a blob of green, and as you see, it's trailing down all the way down my water strip that I just made because it's wet still. So this is creating a beautiful contrast of green to blue as it's falling down, and I'm just tracing a little bit with my paintbrush along this edge just to show those two colors blending together to meet in the middle somewhere. Now I can go ahead and also go in with some orange. I feel like that would be a really pretty color to be against the green, and follow through with this orange. Kind of, you see how it's blending, creating this shadow effect. And I'm going to take some more of my two colors, added some water to my paintbrush. So there is an extra tip for you on how to do your watercolor raindrops. Hey, I'm back. So I haven't let mine completely fully dry, but I am, and so far this is what it looks like. So I just wanted to give you a view of what my painting came out to be. Now yours doesn't have to look like this at all, but this is my example for you, and as you can see, a lot of my colors were able to blend together. The droplets really fell to the bottom like I wanted them to by putting them up on this wall, by taping them here. So just experiment with whatever materials you have. Just experiment and figure out which way you like to make your painting beautiful. And each of your paintings are going to come out beautiful because you are the artist and no one is telling you how this painting needs to look. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and remember to post me a picture of your paintings, or respond to some of the questions that I posted with the poem. And I'll be seeing you next week with another video posted about another art project connected to your literacy project as well. So have a great time arting, and look forward to seeing what you come up with. Bye everyone.